Hi everyone, Kelly here. Today I have Kim from Kim One Music, and Kim and I are going to be chatting about how she built her studio from scratch, and she's now at $3,500 in monthly revenue in just 5 months. So, Kim, I'd love to kick it off with a quick introduction. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your studio?
Yeah. So I am based in Orange County, California. I teach beginning, intermediate piano, and like all levels of voice. And yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, how long have you been teaching privately?
I've been teaching privately at other music studios for about 4 years
Okay.
at this point, but my personal private studio is very brand new.
About 5 months old, I guess.
Yeah.
Awesome. What do you think is a hallmark of your teaching or something that makes your studio really unique for your area?
I try to emphasize like very personalized education and not push for like standardized testing and gotta do this, but really focusing on harnessing what the student
Hmm.
wants, their artistic goals, building up their confidence, and ultimately like longevity of enjoyment in music.
Awesome. Awesome. Do you find that most of your students have competitive goals, or are they a little bit more comfortable working at their own pace, or maybe goals are more about individual songs that they'd like to learn, things like that?
Mm. So a majority of my students are like beginners.
Mm.
So for now, we're in the whole have fun. Hopefully, this becomes a thing that they really get into. And so far, like all of my students enjoy what they're doing. So
Good,
yeah.
good. That's awesome. That's awesome. No, I know you mentioned that before you were with several other studios. Before you started your studio about 5 months ago, what were you doing? What did that look like?
Ooh, okay. I was teaching at multiple private
Mm.
studios, and I had other side jobs as well. I was like making boba and whatnot. So like part-time restaurant jobs just to try and make ends meet because I didn't really have like that many students at like other
Mm.
studios. So I was just trying to get money from anywhere that I could.
Got it. Got it. And when you decided to start your own studio, what inspired that?
Um, well, originally when I started with you, my intent was like, oh, like, let's start like a couple like side hustly sort of things by like having a few students of my own
Mm.
while also like reaching out to more private studios. But then like it really opened my eyes that like my own business where like I get to set my own rate that's like my actual value, um, where I get to really dedicate my time to like ideal
Yeah.
clients that like I choose was like where I actually wanted to be.
Yep. Now, speaking of the ideal client, that was something that you and I spent a lot of time. I remember when we first started working together talking about was who it was that you actually wanted to be working with. Why was that so important to you coming from the other schools that you were working in?
Like from the other schools, it really felt like they were just pushing as many students as they could
Mm.
onto me. And it made me realize that, with the rate that they were paying me as well, in order to make a living, I would just have to like accept any student that came my way. And of course, like most of them were very, very nice, but
Mhm.
like there were some students that I was like, wow, I don't really want to be doing this, but I have to.
And it's something that we've talked about too, that it's not always just the ideal student. Sometimes it's the ideal parent too, right? So in a school situation, obviously the school does some of that maintenance for you and they're working with the parent. But how do you feel your relationship with your students and their families have changed now that they're all your private students?
That's a great question. So I hmm, has it changed? Honestly, I think I've experienced like a still really good amount of communication and
Mm.
connectedness to parents and students because before when I was working at private studios I would still like give them updates of, oh, this is like what we're working on, and like some of my students like were having some troubles like in
Yeah.
lessons, but we were still like really proactive about like I still want to try this, and my parents really appreciated that about me. And so I thought like I think this is probably my strong suit, as a teacher that, for one, I really care about like
Yes.
trying as many options as we can to make it work for this student. So if that's what I'm doing as like an employee for someone else, then like I could get paid more to do that as my own entity. So like yeah, I can, well, from that I realized I can totally do the whole like scheduling parent interaction sort of thing just fine. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So it gives you a little bit more control over not only what you're doing with your students, but how you're sharing that information with the parents. They get a little bit more input because it's communicated directly to you. Does that sound
Yeah,
pretty accurate?
exactly.
Awesome. Awesome. So not only is the pay something that was frustrating for you at the other schools, but what else was frustrating enough for you to want to look at starting your own studio?
I was also really frustrated with some of like the management
Mm,
and whatnot. Like there were some questionable like boundaries that weren't being respected from like my employers, and for a while I was like, "Oh yeah, you know, like I'll leave in a year or something." But like you really pushed me to be like, "No, you don't deserve that, and like you're way more capable than you think." So we it was kind of like scary like at that point where we just like launched into, "No, you should like, this doesn't serve you, you should leave." And I did, and it still worked out, and you were right. So yeah.
and when we talked about that too, I remember there was and this wasn't even necessarily a full-time employer, and you had some studios that they were lovely to work with, and that's obviously this is different across the board, and you had some really good experiences that were harder to leave.
Mhm.
But I just remember there was one day that you texted me and someone had randomly sent you um, that you were booked for a class that you had never really agreed to.
Mm, yeah.
And there was an
Man,
expectation that you were going to show up in like a week or two.
yeah, that was wild. And I'm just really thankful for you specifically because, like, for me personally, I really struggle with like imposter
Mhm.
syndrome, especially since like I am
Yeah.
a younger teacher. Like I
Yeah.
just graduated like a year ago, that sort of thing. I'm very confident in my abilities as a teacher, but like a lot of my colleagues, like they underprice themselves because they're like, "Oh,
Yes.
I'm just starting off as a teacher." And I was ready to do that as well, but you convinced me, no, like, don't do that. You're a good teacher. Price yourself at what you're worth. And
Yes.
that's been a really good philosophy for me to maintain. And on top of that, like, you've always just given me such good professional advice. And as like a little anxiety ridden person, that brings me so much comfort knowing that I could be like, I need a second opinion on this, like, text. So,
Awesome. Awesome. I know we're in communication really frequently, and I'm happy to do that. But it's been exciting to see you take a little bit more control over that. Where
yeah.
when we first started together, a lot of your messages were, here's this message, what do I do? As opposed to now, where you send me a message and you say, this is what I think the solution is. And it's just kind of more of a confirmation or a second glance before you send things off.
Mhm.
You're a lot more confident in your communication and a lot more concise. And that's exciting to see
Mhm.
too.
Yeah.
So then we started a studio. And we,
Did.
about 5 months ago, kind of took this dive.
Mhm.
When we first started working together, what were some of the things that were scary about having your own studio?
Yeah, a lot of things. Um, well, for one, I just didn't really, I had so many questions.
Mm,
Like, what does it look like tax wise? Like,
mm,
how do I set this up? Like, how do I, like, even get students in the first place? What
yep.
do I need in order to, like, be an established studio? Yada, yada, legal questions and the whatnot. But it was really nice to have you as a mentor because I think it's one thing to have to go through like all of the energy of like establishing the studio,
Yeah.
but then it's a whole other beast having to like come up with, how can I make this happen? But
Yep.
I personally as a human function best when I have someone saying like, hey, like these are some ideas, I think you should do this, and I'm like, yes, I will put my energy towards doing that rather than like having to do both, which would have resulted in me not doing this thing
I
philosophy.
understand. I understand.
Yeah.
That little extra push, and
Mhm.
too. I want to give you a lot of credit too because everything that we've talked about, every idea that we've talked about, um, when we look at a new option or new opportunity to either find students or a policy change or parent communication, you are so ready and willing to accept that new information. And it has been a really good progression from Kim, do this to, hey, what do we think about this? And now you've got a lot of ideas yourself too. And it's been really fun, which is wonderful. When we first started the studio, we were at 0 private students. We had absolutely nothing. It was just all through other employment.
Yeah.
What does it feel like now that you're fully self-employed?
Everything I ever wanted, yeah. And it's really great.
What are some things that you think have improved in your life now that you are self-employed?
Hmm. So, for one, this is the most money I've ever had in my life, so that gives me like more more flexibility to go about my life. And now I think like my relationship with money and professionalism as well is
Mm.
like much more mature, which I'm really thankful for. And I feel a lot more capable of doing my goals because before, like, I never would have imagined myself like doing this or where I'm at so soon and with
Mm.
like, yeah, didn't really envision myself doing that. But now, like, my entire world is opened up, and I'm like, oh, if I did this, then it's crazy. It's like now I'm looking at like even bigger goals for the future, like potentially opening up my own like physical location, that sort of thing, since I'm
Yeah.
still just like a traveling studio at the moment. So, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And I know that we've got so many other things on the docket too, and other ideas that you've been sharing, which is wonderful. And as you're looking at where we are now and the mindset that you are in now around money and owning your own business, what do you think were some important mindset shifts for you in the last 5 months? Or what are some things that you kind of had to overcome in your mindset when we got stuck?
Mhm. I think that, well, for one that I mentioned earlier, the whole like imposter syndrome sort of thing,
Mm.
I was kind of subconsciously in this mentality of like, no, you can't charge that rate. You're just starting. You don't have an established like studio, so there's no way that like anybody's gonna take you seriously. Like, um, and just like a lot of self-doubt as well,
Mhm.
like, can can I even pull this off, that sort of thing, am I capable of it? But yeah, it's like just been this really big shift of yes, like you totally can do this. It's really hard, but like you have everything it takes to figure it out and make it happen because like you want it and because like I love what I do
Yeah.
so much. So like that carries you through. And like I said, I never imagined myself like in the position where I am right now as a young entrepreneur and business owner. But yeah, look, I think it's just also kind of clearing away these conceptions of like, no, you can't do that. That's not who you are. When in actuality, like, yeah, that's who I was this entire time. Like,
Mm,
I am this person, this like goal achiever, and I'm much closer to my dreams than I ever was before.
that's awesome. That's awesome. I know I said it before, but it's just so exciting to see you change from not sure of what comes next. The first time Kim got her first student, the very first student that the trial lesson closed, she'd had these sticky notes up on her wall of all of her goals. And I got this video sent to me of her pulling the sticky note off the wall, like screaming because she was so excited. And now I see you, pretty much every week you log on and you're like, oh yeah, I like added 2 new students this week. It's no big deal. And just going from that, oh my gosh, I have 1 student to, yeah, no, I've got like 17 and maybe 4 more starting this week and it's all fine. And that's been a really fun progression too. But isn't it interesting when we are starting something new, which this can feel like sitting at the bottom of a mountain and looking up at the top, thinking how we're going to get there. When we're starting something new, our mindset tends to be more negative than we realize,
Yeah.
right? We think it's optimistic. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if I had that?
Hmm.
But what's standing between us and the top of that mountain is a whole slew of self doubt and all of the reasons that we can't do it, and all of the things that are standing in our way. So, what is something that you have found when you look at maybe a possible self doubt? Like, um, I can't leave my job. What if all of my students just magically disappear overnight? Right? Because that was when we talked about.
Yeah.
What
That
has helped you pass that?
um what has helped me pass that? Hmm. Could you say the question again actually?
Yeah, you're totally fine. So when we look at a potential hurdle, something that's in our way, and usually these are mindset things. Like, I remember when you were looking at leaving your last studio that you had the most students in, and we were looking at our final day, which I believe is tomorrow,
Yeah,
right?
literally tomorrow.
And we were trying to figure out what that looked like and if it was okay for us to leave. Um,
Hmm.
one of the things that we had chatted about as a fear in leaving is that what if my studio doesn't sustain? Or what if I can't keep my students? Or what if they all leave? Or then what? Because now I'm totally responsible for that, right? It's not someone else's responsibility. In those moments of doubt, what has helped you push through and make the decisions to continue on your own?
Mm. So you pointed out to me that like the previous situations, like all the situations that I've left in like these past few months were not ideal for me.
Mm,
And I was just settling for like, where I was at because subconsciously I wasn't thinking that I was capable of
mm,
anything more than that for the time being. But like you pushed me immediately to be like, no, this is what you deserve. You're ready for it. You can do it. And I just really needed that extra push as well to realize like, um, I think there's also this subconscious like people pleasing tendency that
mm,
I'm like, oh yeah, like I just want to do the best I can where I'm at. Oh no, like leaving would like inconvenience and like cause so many problems, and I can
mm.
forego that by just like sticking around for a while longer.
Yeah.
But that like mainly inconveniences and harms me, which now I think like along the lines of your previous questions, one of the biggest mentality shifts of like what we've been doing together is now I'm specifically doing things that benefit
Mm,
me and not like um doing anything that I really don't want that doesn't serve me or my greater goals for the future.
yep.
So that's been lovely.
Awesome. Awesome. I know one of the things too, we settled at a place where we were losing money by
Yeah.
teaching for their schools, right? We needed that time back to take students that you had on a wait list. So that was an important decision making part
Mhm.
too. But I'm so excited about all the progress that you've had. And it's just been so much fun to work with you. So, Kim, when we first started working together, what helped you make the decision? Why did you decide it was the right fit for us to work together?
Mhm. I really liked how you were able to highlight what my strengths are, especially when I was in the midst of not knowing that, like, I do have value to contribute to this. And ultimately, it serves my students better as
Mm,
well when I have, like, a structure in place where I can dedicate and be available for them, like, as much as I want to be, instead of just, like, spreading myself thin everywhere else. And this was like a really important like life and financial investment as well because you gave like very solid answers of like, hey, this is what you should do, and like this is your goal that you can totally achieve and that we're getting close to achieving. And like this investment was totally worth it because like I've made like the amount back already, like within just the first few clients that I achieved. So above and beyond from this point.
awesome. Now, would you recommend that other people work with me, and who do you think might be a good fit?
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. Best decision I've ever made. I'd say folks who are looking to really take the next step in their lives and who really care about music education and
Mhm.
like being the best that they can be for their students. And maybe people who are just looking for that little extra kick in the ass to like get things moving along, because you definitely provide that, and I'm very thankful for that. And yeah, but just ultimately, if you want to bring your studio to the next level or even make it exist in the first place, yeah, you're like, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for me.
You're welcome. It's been wonderful working with you. It has been so much fun. So let's say someone's listening right now and they're on the fence about either starting their own studio or trying to grow their own studio, or even with working with me. Why should they take action right now?
Mm. Because you have provided like really, really clear outlines of like, hey, this is the next step. And it's been like very achievable.
Mhm.
It's hard work, but like it's all been like very clearly set out and achievable. And like you also like you know what you're doing and it works. And I've seen like the way that you've done work for other clients as well. And I am also like a living testament to the fact that in spite of all like the self-doubt and whatnot, like you've been a really, really good mentor to me. And I've also happily recommended you to like other people as well.
Yes,
So
thank you.
yeah.
Now, a couple last questions for you. First, what is your number one piece of advice for someone that's looking to build a private studio?
Know your worth, stick to it, and really work on sticking to your boundaries.
Mhm. Yes, I agree 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Kim, if someone is watching and they want to find out a little bit more about you, where can they find you on the interwebs?
Wow, on the internet,
Yes.
I am listed as kimwinmusic.org. That's like my teaching website. I'm also on Instagram and everything. That's where I'm usually most active under like Kimmy Nwini. That's just like my personal account. And if anyone wants, like they're free to just like drop in my DMs, like have a nice chat. I love like talking to people and
Awesome.
stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story today and giving a little bit more information about what it took to get where you are right now. Congratulations again. I know we're not done. I know that we've got a few more students that might be signing up this week, and we've got a few slots, a handful of times left in your schedule. We're almost done filling it up.
Whoa,
But
yeah.
thank you for sharing what has worked for you and giving some advice too today. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly.
Awesome. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.